Hello everyone and welcome back to another Underworld video. In this video we're going to be covering Viktor, the Vampire Elder, which is personally one of my favorite characters. Also, before I get started, if you guys have any other suggestions of videos you'd like me to cover, please leave them down in the comments, and I'll definitely read through them. Viktor is a Vampire Elder, who appeared fully in the movies Underworld and Underworld Rise of the Lycans, and is also kind of partially in Underworld Evolution. Viktor was a Hungarian general and warlord born sometime in the 5th century according to Andreas Tanis. Viktor was a ruthless and cruel Hungarian warlord and is described as having ruled over his domain with an iron fist. As Viktor was nearing the end of his life, Marcus Corvinus, the first vampire, came to him with an offer, immortality in exchange for Viktor's military expertise and army in combating the werewolves. These were the spawn of Marcus's twin brother, William. Marcus then turned Viktor, who then also proceeded to turn his entire army, which became the forerunners for what would later be known as the Death Dealers. With his newly turned army of immortals, Viktor launched his war against the werewolves. Again, it's important to note that werewolves are the first victims of William Corvinus, and cannot turn back into the human form like Lycans can. They turn into the wolf form, remain that way forever, and have an unquenchable savage lust for blood. In 1202 AD, the vampires were finally able to locate and capture William. Viktor promised Marcus he would not harm William despite the werewolf's uncontrollable nature. In order for him to deal with the problem without breaking his word, Viktor had Amelia, the third vampire elder, deal with William. Viktor and Amelia finally managed to find William and the werewolf was captured. Viktor then betrayed Marcus though, giving orders to keep William as far away from Marcus as possible. However, with the Death Dealers loyal to Viktor, Marcus could do nothing. Even though Marcus is stronger than Viktor, Viktor had an entire army of immortals at this point, so Marcus didn't have much of a choice but to go along with what he said. Viktor locked away William in a prison where he could not harm anyone or create more of his kind. Viktor kept 2 keys to William's prison. The small one he kept as a necklace which he gave to his daughter Sonia. The larger one, however, he kept with him at all times, going as far to have it welded to his rib cage and be kept under his skin so that Marcus could not find it, as Viktor knew that if Marcus was given the chance, he would try to free William. The relationship between the 2 vampire elders was always strained. Viktor, with Amelia's support, undercut Marcus's power as ruler of the vampire coven, ensuring Marcus would never have the strength to free his brother. However, Viktor never staged an outright coup against Marcus, as he had been told that should Marcus ever die, all in his bloodline would follow him to the grave, including Viktor. To prevent this from happening, the chain was constructed, a system in which only one elder ruled while the other 2 slumbered. So Marcus basically lied to Viktor and told him that if Marcus was killed, all other vampires would die, which Marcus probably knew was not true, but he had to do something because he knew at this point he was expendable and he had to give Viktor a reason to keep him around. Viktor even domesticated a new breed of the vampire's enemies, a humanized version of the werewolves known as Lycans. He used them as watchdogs to guard the vampires during the daylight hours. Lucian was the first Lycan, born to a werewolf mother in the dungeons of Castle Corvinus. This was probably a result of his mother being bitten while he was in the womb, and his body might have been able to change the virus slightly so that he maintained control over himself while being in wolf form, and could control his transformations. In the movie Rise of the Lycans, we see Viktor meeting with some human nobles, and they say that the beasts are at Viktor's door too, and if he cannot protect them, why are they paying him? So protecting humans from the werewolf outbreak caused by William Corvinus seemed to be a way for the vampires to earn some income to supply their needs. Even though William was already captured at this time, Viktor must have been having troubles with the overwhelming number of werewolves that had already been created and were still infecting more people. This could have been the reason that Viktor tried to use the Lycans as daylight guardians in the first place to help protect against the rising werewolf threat. Viktor would get new Lycan bodyguards by capturing humans and forcing them to be bit by a Lycan. This is how we see Raze being turned, who appears in the first Underworld movie. The vampires also developed a special collar for the Lycans. This collar would be placed and locked around their neck, and this would keep them from transforming, as if they did transform, their size would increase dramatically, and then the spike necklace would kill them. So this was a way that Viktor kept the Lycans kind of weakened so that he could control them easier. As we know, not every human can become a Lycan or vampire, and most die after being bit within an hour. So most of the humans that Viktor had bit by the Lycans probably died. Around 1210 AD, Viktor had a daughter named Sonia with a woman named Lona. Much of Viktor's relationship with Lona is unknown. Lona died in labor while giving birth to Sonya, which is why she's never seen in the movie Rise of the Lycans. Almost 200 years after her birth, Sonya falls in love with a Lycan named Lucian and becomes pregnant. Victor eventually discovers this and fears the blending of the species that would result should the child be born. He and the council condemn Sonya, Lucian, and their unborn child to death. Sonya is burnt alive to exposure to sunlight while Lucian, chained to the floor, is forced to watch. Before Lucian's execution, while weakened by Silver and chained to the floor, he uses the full moon to help transform and escape, but not before taking Sonya's pendant with him. He then summons his Lycans and the original werewolves to battle, during which time Victor personally duels Lucian. Although the Vampire Elder is much more powerful, Lucian makes sure to use Victor's weaknesses against him. Sunlight to incapacitate the Elder, and then stabs him through the mouth. Although at the end of the movie Rise of the Lycans, Victor seems to be dead, he manages to survive and retreats with Andreas Tanis and the other Elders, while the rest of the Vampire Coven are slaughtered by the Lycans. These events mark the beginning of the Vampire-Lycan War. So at this point, Lucian has half the key to William's prison, so Victor was determined to make sure that no one would find out the location to William's prison, especially Marcus and Lucian. He slaughters Celine's family because it was her father that was commissioned to build William's prison. But due to her uncanny resemblance to Sonya, instead of killing her, he turns her and proceeds to treat her almost like his own daughter. The war rages on and eventually draws to a close after Lucian is seemingly killed by a vampire named Craven. After this, Victor gathers more power for himself, making himself the leader of the Old World Coven, and going so far as to alter history. In the revised version of the history set out by Victor, he, not Marcus, is the original vampire in time. He exiles the official historian Andreas Tanis, who was the only person who knew that Marcus was the first vampire. So that's the reason Andreas Tanis was exiled to the monastery we see him at in Underworld Evolution, because he was the only one who knew that Victor was not the real first vampire, and Victor didn't want anyone to find that out, as it could possibly undermine his power over the Coven. There was probably a lot of other events that he likely altered or erased them altogether. To what extent he erased the history concerning Sonya is unclear. Whether he shared the information that she was pregnant with a hybrid baby, or that he was the one that sentenced her to death, is unclear. Obviously her absence would have to be explained, and perhaps some high-ranking members, namely the Elders, maybe Craven and Tanis, were notified. Celine did not know of this, nor was it permitted for anyone to dig into vampire history, if no one else survived the Lycan attack on the castle, in which case only Victor and Tanis knew the full story. Other revised events included responsibility for the war, which he blamed entirely on Lucian. Concerning the events in the first Underworld movie, in 2003 Victor is hibernating, not to be awakened for another 100 years. However, Celine awakens him ahead of time, convinced that Lucian is still alive, and knows that Craven has made a deal with him. A furious Victor confronts his protege, condemning her to be judged. Notably, Victor seems to be more upset by Celine's relationship with a Lycan named Michael Corvin than her claims of Craven's treachery. Victor orders Celine be locked away until Amelia and the council can arrive and decide her fate, which Victor undoubtedly knows will be a death sentence. A tearful Celine begs Victor to allow her to provide proof of her claims, but he ignores her. Celine ends up finding out that Craven indeed did not kill Lucian, and the two had actually conspired and made a deal to kill the Vampire Elders. So one of the people that Victor trusted in most, that he named Regent of the Budapest Coven, was actually planning to undermine him the entire time. Upon learning the truth of Celine's claims, and learning that Amelia has been assassinated by the Lycans, Victor becomes enraged. Victor then punches the Lycan that they have on the floor, tearing open half of his face and killing him instantly. A guilty Victor apologizes to Celine for not believing her, and the two have to pursue Craven. However, neither vampire pays any mind to the Lycan's blood spreading over the floor over the chambers of the Elders, unaware of the consequences that would ensue from that. Victor promptly launches a full-scale assault on the Lycan lair, effortlessly breaking the neck of a transformed Lycan named Raze, who was one of the most powerful Lycans, then driving his sword through his chest. Craven attempts to escape but is forced to run and hide each time he sees Victor. Victor eventually comes upon Celine, who is in the process of biting Michael. Turning him into the first hybrid in the series is a last-ditch attempt to save his life from being shot by the silver nitrate bullets. Furious, Victor tosses Celine away from Michael and throws the latter through the wall into a flooded courtyard. Unknown to Victor, Craven had actually revealed to Selene that Viktor was the one who had murdered her entire family, not the Lycans. Selene tearfully confronts Viktor, accusing him of killing her family and murdering Sonya. Viktor protests that he has given her immortality in return, a gift he insists is way more important than her family was. When confronted by Sonya's death, however, Viktor claims that he loved his daughter dearly, but he was forced to kill her to protect the vampire species. Selene still clearly disagrees with Viktor's actions, and he abandons her so that he can find and kill Michael. Viktor is then confronted by his ultimate fear. Selene's bite is reacted with the Lycan virus and the pure Corvinus strain in Michael's body, him being a descendant of the first immortal Alexander Corvinus, causing the traits of both Lycan and vampire to appear. Michael attacks Viktor, initially showing speed and strength unmatched by even the vampire elder. However, Viktor, using Michael's lack of combat experience to his advantage, Viktor having at this point hundreds upon hundreds of years of combat experience, is able to subdue him. Viktor's bodyguards come to finish off the hybrid, but Selene kills them. She is then punched aside by Viktor. Michael rushes to her aid but is overtaken by Viktor, who begins to strangle him. Upon seeing this, Selene makes the decision to kill Viktor, which was probably not an easy decision, considering he's basically been like a father to her for most of her life. She then slices his head in half with his own sword, saving Michael and avenging both her family, Lucian, and Sonya all at the same time. I also wanted to mention that in the first Underworld movie, the Lycan scientists that Lucian has working on mixing the Lycan and vampire strains together state that if Lucian wants to become a more powerful hybrid, he will need the blood of an elder, which he also tells to Viktor. So this kind of proves to some degree that the blood of an elder is better and the virus is stronger in an elder than it is in just a regular vampire. So by extension, Viktor would definitely be stronger than most other vampires, probably aside from Marcus. Also, even after Viktor's death, we know that he's still revered greatly among the vampires, as we see that his coat is hung up on display in Thomas's coven in the movie Underworld Awakening. Viktor does appear in the movie Underworld Evolution, or more accurately, his dead body appears in the movie Underworld Evolution. Viktor's body is retrieved by the Cleaners, an organization dedicated to cleaning up after the Vampire-Lycan War, led by the original immortal Alexander Corvinus. Alexander extracts the key from beneath Viktor's flesh, only to later have it snatched by his son Marcus, unfortunately. Viktor's dead body is most likely destroyed when Alexander Corvinus blows up his own ship. Although not a pure-born vampire, or a highborn, Viktor is nevertheless obsessed with the purity of bloodlines, as shown in his attempts to establish a hierarchy by trying to arrange for Sonya to become an elder. His fixation on blood purity is so great that he considers his victory over various Lycans to be only natural, as he views them as nothing more than animals and slaves. Due to this, he views the possibility of a hybrid as an abomination. He takes extreme measures to prevent such a creature from ever existing. Viktor also views immortality as a gift above all others, as we see when he tries to reason with Selene, when she discovers he had killed her entire family, and states that his gift to Selene should more than make up for what he has taken from her. His interest in blood purity is also exhibited in Viktor's false claims that he and Amelia are pure-born vampires, which is impossible because they were some of the first vampires ever turned by Marcus, and they wouldn't have been able to be even close to the same age as Marcus if they were actually pureborns. Also, at some point prior to 1402, Viktor was the one who turned Samira in unknown circumstances. Viktor later, presumably after Sonya's death, began to favor Samira in particular. However, around the time that Selene was turned by Viktor, he then sent Samira away to the Nordic Coven. So that's it for this video. Like I said, if you guys have any other characters you want me to cover, please leave them down in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe, I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for almost 2,000 subscribers. That's like insane. I didn't think this channel would grow that fast, but I do really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video.